just one pre-season game left to go before the new National League North campaign starts. Your first, of course, as Chester manager. How do you think preparations have gone for you so far?
Really pleasing overall. I think from the outside, generally you would talk about the friendlies, pre-season fixtures and what we've played. Really happy to have played a total variety of opposition in terms of playing a League 1 side, League 2 side from the division below. It'll be 2 obviously after Saturday, and aside from 2 divisions below, and then obviously opposition further down the pyramid in terms of Whitchurch. So you get a variety of opposition. We were quite clear, and where I think pre-season fixtures are truly irrelevant is that you approach the games in different ways, and it's my belief that you have really clear outcomes and a real clear way of doing it. So we, against Rochdale, looked at how to defend against a back 3 and what we might do if we had to defend slightly deeper. Ultimately we had to sacrifice someone to give us another body, certainly behind the ball, to then play against Morecambe, where we looked at 2 defensive structures. The Stalybridge game was a real mixed bag for us during the week. It was a good opportunity in the first half, I think, to expose some of the academy boys and some of the younger boys to a level of football that isn't ours, and for them to see the step up even to that level. And then in the Runcorn Linnets game and the Stalybridge game, the Atherton Coles game, really looking at our in possession structures against teams that will defend in different ways. Whether that is teams that will get men behind the ball, we've got to be prepared to play against that. How do we build up? How do we play through? How do we play around the sides? And ultimately, how do we score? So to go into those games with limited sessions on that, that's why you do it. And you hope that ultimately during the season you're in a better place with those pictures. So the results are irrelevant, and that's why you solely look at the performance. We will probably look at it internally with a really specific yardstick as to where we want to be and what we're judging players on. Going into the final game of pre-season, don't think there's much more to learn. Look, you're always learning as you go, but I mean specifically for the opening day, I think we're quite clear. I think you can fall into a trap of, during pre-season, preparing for the first game of the season and only the first game of the season, and you can do things and fall into that trap of, well, this is what Alfreton are going to do, and how do we prepare for that game? Actually, we've got to prepare for the 46 league games and the accompanying cup games. So really pleased with that. Probably particularly delighted with what we've been able to put in place in and around the training ground, the environment that the players have created and the atmosphere they've created for everyone in that, and ultimately wanting to come to work. I think they've done that really well. We've put a lot of detail into the physical performance side of things, and that really pleased with how we've, certainly baby steps at the moment, but how we've taken that on board, moving to that new model. I think it's important to realise that in the middle of May we had 2 players, both under 19 academy graduates, had to handle the entire retention of players, no recruitment targets, from obviously coming to the party a little bit later than other clubs. So for us to have built the squad that we've got, which we're really, really satisfied with, done the work that we've done on the training ground, introduced that new model and ultimately a new way of doing things, and seen in the friendlies, the foundations, let's be clear, no finished articles in any way, shape or form in any of those fixtures. To have done that and turned that around in a really short space of time, I think is full credit to the players and ultimately what they've tried to do ahead of a season that we're all really excited about.
Unfortunately, one player you will be without for possibly the entire season. The news this week that George Glendon is expected to miss a number of months due to an ACL injury. A big blow, obviously a great leader on the pitch, his ability, and also a fantastic lad off it. I'm sure that will still have value to you though around the group this season.
I think the overriding emotion and feeling on it is disappointment for George. Naturally a footballer, a really talented footballer, he will be gutted and devastated to not be out there on the pitch, particularly when he's so influential on and off the pitch with our group. He's as popular as he is, both with the staff and players alike, never mind the wider supporter base and the club on the whole really. So a lot of my time has been invested in just ensuring that George is alright, or is as alright as can be with obviously the disappointing news. I think you have to sort of pay a word of sort of well done to our medical team and the way they went about it, that It was obviously an off-the-ball injury. It didn't look good at the time. They performed a series of tests. They went through the process that they go through. Both Kevin Roberts and Luke Davis ultimately recommended a scan, just with a feeling that there might be slightly more to it than what had been shown up in those initial tests. That's what it showed, and I think the only positive to really take from the situation on George's part is that at least that was picked up on a scan before it was an injury that was made any worse. George has done everything he can to avoid surgery and ultimately minimise his time on the sidelines. That isn't something that can be avoided. He needs to go through that process, and he'll have sort of our full support. So from our point of view, let's not dress it up. We've lost an immensely talented footballer from our team, a really influential character, and ultimately the club captain. What we have, in my opinion, is a strong squad, players that will now get the opportunity to step up, and I'm sure will relish the opportunity to do so both on the pitch and in the dressing room. There won't be a culture of feeling sorry for ourselves. There won't be a passing of accountability of, well, George Glendon isn't playing. No, actually someone else has got to step up, and I know, knowing the characters and getting to know the characters in our dressing room, there's certainly plenty that will want to do that, both positionally and certainly in the dressing room as well. So, like I say, overwhelming feeling, disappointment for George, frustration that I won't be able to get one of the most talented players in this division out there on the pitch, but a real focus on how we ensure we put the type of performances that we want and get the results that we know we need to get without him. And there is almost no point feeling sorry for ourselves. There's got to be a real focus on how we apply ourselves to get those results and make sure that come the end of the season, as and when George is back where he wants to be physically, we're where we want to be as a group.
George, of course, is one name we've talked about. I'm sure the supporters have other names they'd like to talk about that perhaps they've not seen yet in pre-season. On the injuries front, how are you looking going into Hyde and, of course, going into the new league season?
So, I think I was determined to not provide a running commentary on injuries. I think for a couple of reasons. Look, it's a slightly bizarre comparison, but in any other line of work, there wouldn't be a constant feed of information about someone's medical status. I recognise that football's different, I think sport's different, and ultimately it affects whether people can get out there and do the job that they want to do. We've taken a really conservative approach to the medical situation during pre-season, and we've been really, really cautious. If you go through them, the players that I'm sure people want to know where we're at, I think we've had a lot of misfortune, and I think part of why I've chosen not to mention it is I will never want to come across as making excuses for why maybe we haven't put the best performance on, and I'm determined to not do that, whether that's now, whether that's at Christmas, whether that's any time throughout the season really. Jamie Morgan missed out the weekend with an impact injury. Ollie Haywood picked up a similar injury and will lose him for a period of time now as well. Louis Earle rolled his ankle slightly innocuously in the Staley Bridge game, but because the games come so thick and fast, all of a sudden that becomes back-to-back games where we're not able to use him Saturday, Tuesday, whereas in truth it's a week. He's simply not been involved for a week. We knew with Adam Thomas that he was carrying something as he returned to us. He was on his way back from an injury, a muscular injury. So we took an approach that we would really prioritise his rehabilitation throughout the pre-season period to enable him to be back on the pitch towards the end of pre-season, rather than risk him earlier in pre-season. You've seen that he's been at every game, he's been doing his work on the pitch, and that's the approach that we've chosen to adopt in line with, like I say, the medical team, the two physiotherapists, our sports science consultant that's been working with us. We felt that was the best route to adopt. Liam Edwards has been, again, on his way back from an injury. We've taken an approach where, again, we'll prioritise his rehabilitation. We thought we could get him on the pitch possibly a little bit earlier than we might have wanted at Whitchurch. But to be honest, the decision to not throw Liam in physically has rested with me and me alone. He had a spell of being ill as well. He's had a bit of a stop-start pre-season that no one will be more frustrated than him. But equally, you know when you get a player that has had a spell on the sidelines, what to expect. It's not naivety. We're really clear that we've got to look after those players physically, and flogging them during pre-season when there is a potential risk, there's no value to. What I would say with Louis Earle, with Jamie Morgan particularly, they would have featured during pre-season earlier, I would say, if it was a competitive game. And I don't mean on their part. I mean on our part really, that they've been in a position where we could probably put them through. At times similar with Kev Roberts, and it feels a weird one, doesn't it? He's part of that medical team, and there's been a couple of jokes exchanged there as to whether he's been treating himself. But he, again, just felt something early doors in pre-season. There is no rush to get players back. What supporters won't realise is that there is a real bulk of work that goes on behind the scenes before we put a player back out there on the pitch, and that's something we've put in place and are really going to stick to throughout the season. That there is a level of work that has already gone into a Kev Roberts, a Liam Edwards and Adam Thomas, so that when we get them on the pitch, it becomes about sharpness, yes, and minutes, and that's where we utilise the data model, in that if we need to double up sessions in and around the academy boys, if we need to do additional sessions with particular players and particular groups, we can do that. So quite pleased really with where they're at. So I recognise on Tuesday I looked around and I saw a very, very good group of players sat 3 rows behind me. I'm okay with that in the penultimate pre-season friendly. I certainly hope we don't have that scenario during the season, but it can happen as and when it does. Largely, like I said, there have been impact injuries. 2 scenarios that are quite unique in terms of what we inherited, but we knew that and we went into it with our eyes open, and I'm really, really pleased with the work that the guys have done to get them as close to being back out on the pitch as possible. The main thing is that come the season, during the season, more often than not, ideally every week, I want us to have a full complement of players. I won't judge our squad in anything really other than their ability to progress during pre-season. So in terms of the weekend, we'll see a lot of names on the team sheet that haven't in recent weeks, because I think it's important that with 7 days to go, we put those players in that environment. We won't rush players back, and equally, we haven't been taken aback or surprised by anything. We knew what we were doing when we signed certain players, and we know how to get them where we want them physically. So I will be as excited as most to see those 1 or 2 that maybe haven't had the minutes. And it is 2 players. It's dead easy to realise that haven't had as much football, and those ones that have had knocks and niggles that were protected due to the nature of the fixtures, we'll see them return from Saturday onwards.
And of course, before Saturday, you've got the open training session here at the Deva tomorrow. A good chance, for the fans to see the lads being put through their paces, and also to mingle and meet them, and for autograph opportunities like that. It's important as a club that we do these things, isn't it?
I think it's vital. I think a big part of what the players have done, and what I hope that we can do as a group, is to really re-establish a bond between the football club and its supporters. The supporters have certainly done their bit, and I think that's been done to death in a way. The season ticket sales have been phenomenal. The booster budget contributions are enormous, and you can feel the enthusiasm that has been created by our supporters, which is made even more impressive on the back of what I would speak for the players that were here last season. They were disappointed with ultimately where they finished up, given a number of talented players that we have. So I think there is a genuine desire from the football team to repair that relationship. So whether that is, I think the work that the Community Trust have done has been enormous. I think you've seen the move to the Community Sports Hub, and for that being a base both for the first team and the community activities. But days like tomorrow give an opportunity for our players to meet their supporters, and I hope that our supporters will recognise a real determined approach from the club, yes, but the players particularly, and the staff, the entire first team group, to recognise that support at home, to recognise the support of those that will travel at really difficult times for everyone up and down the country to get behind their football team, to those that really support financially and ultimately give the club the best opportunity. Those people matter, and our players are genuine when they matter to those players. So tomorrow is the first sort of example of that, isn't it? And the first public opportunity for our supporters, particularly our younger supporters, during the school holidays to come, see some of the players, see the new players particularly, and some of the maybe older favourites from last season and previous before that. But equally, for those that are interested, it's a chance to have a look at training and how we prepare for a game on Saturday. So looking forward to it. Always enjoy being at the Deva. It's a long summer away from that, and gradually we're getting close to that start of the season. I will keep making this point around that togetherness and that unity that's required. We require it in the dressing room, and we require that between players and staff, really throughout that group that ultimately is tasked with putting results out there on a Saturday afternoon. That needs to be representative of the entire club. It isn't about necessarily agreeing with every single decision, with everything that happens, with everything players do, certainly with everything I do, or necessarily everything the club does. But everyone wants Chester to win on a Saturday afternoon, and I think that togetherness, I use the word unity, that close-knit mentality that we're Chester and everyone out there on the pitch and in the stands wants the same thing. When we get that, and we get that right, I don't think there are many clubs that can do that as well as us, and I'm determined to make that our biggest strength. With that in mind, we've got a group of players that buy into that. We need the supporters to see that we're very, very genuine and to give us that support that they've done in the closed season, that hopefully we look forward to enjoying from maybe seeing a little bit of that at an open training session, but certainly from the Alfreton game and beyond.